Hello, today we're looking at budgets and in particular income and expenses. So a personal budget can help keep track of your spending as well as your saving. For example, the following is Graham's weekly budget showing how much money he spends per week. So we can see that he spends $300 on rent, $150 on groceries, and you can read through the list and we can see in total all these expenses add up to $650. So how much does he spend a year in expenses? Well, all we'd have to do is take the $650 and times it by 52 weeks, and that's $33,800 per year. So that's the minimum amount of money he needs just to pay his basic bills. If he earned $38,000 per year after tax, so that's how much money he actually gets, how much more could he afford to spend per week? So to work this out, first of all, we're going to take the $38,000 he gets a year, minus the $33,800 he spends, leaves us with $4,200 left over. Now, if we divide that $4,200 over 52 weeks, it's $80.77 per week. So Graham can spend another $80.77 per week. So when we earn money, we call this income because the money's coming into our wallets. And when we spend money, we call this an expense. Now, there are three main types of expenses. The first type is called a fixed expense. The second one's called a variable expense, and there's also discretionary expenses. So a fixed expense is something that does not change in price. It's really predictable. So for example, your rent might be $200 a week or $400 a week. Your phone plan might be $60 a month. Your internet might be $100 a month. These are typically prices that do not change over time. They're pretty predictable, and so we call it a fixed expense. If the price can change, if it can vary from, period to period, we'd say this is a variable expense. So for example, your electricity and your water usage will probably be different every time depending on how much you shower or have lights on in your house. You might not buy the exact same groceries every week, so your grocery bill might be different each time. So this is a variable expense. And finally, discretionary expenses. These are just optional expenses. You don't really need these to live and survive. They're just something that you use your discretion to buy. For example, you might want to treat yourself and get some junk food. Maybe you have a Netflix or Spotify subscription. Maybe you spend money on Xbox games. These are all discretionary expenses. They are things that you need to use your discretion and judgment as to whether you buy it or not. Alrighty, here's a question for you to try. The following is Cindy's weekly budget showing how much money she spends per week. So you can see her budget, it's all on the left. There's 4 questions I need you to answer. If you could please pause the video, give it a go, and hopefully you'll get it right. Okay, so the first question is, how much does she spend a week? So the first thing you want to do is pretty much just grab your calculator, type in all those numbers, and hopefully it'll add to $711 per week. If you're asked to list one fixed expense, we're looking for an expense that should not typically change every week. So we can see that the rent or the insurance are probably the most likely to not change over time. Next thing, you have to list one variable expense. So what variables or what can we see here in the expenses are likely to change? Well, it's probably your groceries, your petrol, and utilities. So when you buy groceries, you might buy different things each week. Petrol prices change all the time. And, water and electricity is not always consistent. So these are probably variable expenses. So if you wrote any one of these 3, I'd be happy with that. And finally, list one discretionary expense. I'd say it would be takeaway food or entertainment. You do not need these to survive, but they're just nice to have. So any one of those 2 would be an acceptable answer for a discretionary expense. Okay, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully that made sense. Any questions, let me know down below. Apart from that, have an awesome day, and I suggest you start working on your own personal budget. Maybe you can save some money too.